Welcome to this episode of the Be Raire Podcast with me, Jessica Kimber. Today we have Chris Minehan from Brunel. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. As you know, my goal of the podcast is to interview other recruiters, and it's to get recruiters to share their advice with the absolute end goal of helping recruiters excel in their careers. So your story absolutely inspires me. You've been in the industry about 18 months at this stage, but you've got a strong sales background. So let's kick off with you telling me a little bit about your current experience. How did you get into recruitment?
Yeah, so like you said, I was in sales for a long time. So I guess it was a values thing for me, like in being in retail sales, you got to work weekends. The store I was working in particular, it's open pretty much all year round by a couple of days. So the downtime wasn't really downtime. The phone was always on. So for me, I had a young family, or started a young family at the time, and I wanted to get something more professional as well, and just challenge myself moving forward. So I started to have a look for new roles, and that meant speaking to recruiters. I thought that was an easy way to get myself out there. I hadn't applied for a job for a long time. So yeah, I started to speak to recruiters, and they started pitching opportunities at me, and it just felt like I would be doing the same thing again in retail. That sort of pigeonholed me in that space, which that's where my experience was. But yeah, the more I got talking to recruiters, the more I thought that that's a job that I could maybe have a look at. And so yeah, I started putting my application in for a couple of recruitment companies, and then the more I started interviewing and learning about the industry, the more I thought it would be a good fit. I was looking for something where I could build longer term relationships, have more meaningful clients I could work with. The business development side, I hadn't really done too much of. I'd done a lot of, B2C. So, customers coming in, and I'd sort of touched on some business development, but I thought that would be an interesting challenge for me. And then, I interviewed at a few places. One in particular, gave me an opportunity, which I jumped on, and yeah, here I am.
Wow. I love that. And I love that your journey started when you were working in a retail store ultimately, and it's opened up the doors for you to be able to transition into recruitment. So what would you say have been like the main key traits that were transferable into the role that you're doing now that you learned over the years?
I think, a couple of big ones would be customer service, really understanding having those interactions with people, whether they're good or bad, but really making sure that you're adding value to them and understanding their issues or what their needs are. I think a big thing with sales, and particularly the area that I worked in, which was mattress sales, it's really about qualifying your customers. So understanding, what their problems are, and then, having an answer or a solution to those problems. So I felt that transferred probably the best, being able to speak to candidates, understand what their needs are, why they might be looking for a new role, or if they're a passive type of candidate, what types of roles would interest them. So it's really about, those two factors were pretty big for me. And then I guess resilience too, like, in retail, and especially in bulky goods, there's issues and things come up, and being able to deal with difficult customers and those sorts of things really gives you, thick skin. So it's not something I do all the time, but there's definitely situations in this business where, people let you down or things happen and they're outside of your control, and you have to sort of have tough conversations sometimes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like everything you've just mentioned is just a typical day in a recruiter's world, isn't it? It's the qualification, the difficult customers. Most people are great, but you definitely do get a lot of curveballs and objections. And I know that you used to teach sales when you were in your previous role as well. And we spoke a lot about customer journey. We spoke about different sales techniques, objection handling. So I know when it comes to recruitment, this is something a lot of recruiters struggle with. They've got the delivery part down pat. They understand the candidate side of things. But when it comes to that client side of things and that lead generation, it very much is a challenge to a lot of people. So I would love to get your insight around, let's start with the qualification side of things. Like, what would you say are the most important things that you need to do or be aware of when it comes to qualifying leads or qualifying our clients?
Yeah, I guess with your clients, you're understanding where the need is. You obviously got to qualify that they are your right type of customer. So getting clear on that initially is probably pretty important. Understanding the types of clients that you really want to work with. Sometimes, depending on the business, you might be lumped with some clients that are, global clients, or clients that have already been around, and you need to work with them, which is fine. But I guess you can start taking them on that journey as well, and that's maybe more down the track with working with them a lot more and educating them on the type of process that you want to work in. But you want to make sure that when you're speaking, if you're doing a cold call, you just started working with a client, that there actually is a need for your service there. There's no point in pitching your service when you don't actually understand where their problems are. So it's really understanding what is their recruitment process, the types of candidates that fit in with their business, what do they actually struggle with, is there any particular skill sets that they're short on, if there is, how do they hire? Is it reactional, or are they always looking for good candidates? Are they a business that if they see a candidate they can fit into the business, what types of candidates are those that they would be open to seeing as well? I think you can create a lot of opportunities by the types of questions you're asking your clients. You're not just saying, oh, what roles do you have open right now? It's really getting deep and going, hey, I understand that this is your objective. I understand that this is a skill set you're after. It is, really hard to find in the market, but I do have an option in this. Would this be someone you'd be considering? So it's being able to, link those things. And going back to my sales background, it was always, qualifying, finding the problem. And then when you have the solution, the sale is much easier then. Like if you're selling something that someone doesn't need, it makes it really, really hard.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all for solution-based selling as well. I feel like if you go in too early and you pitch, it's always going to be a no if you're not pitching in relation to what that person actually wants, because each and every client, and to be honest, even candidates that we speak to, they were headhunting. Every single person wants something totally different. So who are we to say, oh, we've got the perfect role, we've got the perfect candidate, when we don't even know what that means to them? And I think sometimes in recruitment, that's where people quite often overlook. They'll see a job title, or they'll see on paper what somebody does or wants, like a job description. But when it actually comes to the ins and outs and the non-negotiables, it's very different from person to person. So that qualification piece and really investing that time up front just makes everything so much easier. What I want to know from you as well, though, is, of course, naturally during that process, we get heaps of objections. And I always say to my clients, I don't think I ever have a call where there's no objections. So it's something you're just going to have to learn to master, whether you enjoy it or not. So I know your views on this. This is something that you've done for many, many years now. So talk me through your process or strategies that you use to best handle objections.
Yeah, well, I think, when we had that discussion, it was talking about the job of, say, you're BDing a HR manager. Their job is to qualify, partners that they work with as well. And, obviously they may have had a bad experience. So it's just understanding, again, what, where they're going, where their values are within the business. I guess it really depends on the type of person you're speaking with as well. If you're speaking to a hiring manager, their objections are going to be different to a HR manager. The HR manager wants to control the situation, that it's almost like they see you as a bit of a threat, whereas a line manager, some of their challenges are with, their internal systems, getting through those, or, the budgets, etc. So, you can always sort of tell the story when the objections are coming in on why they're doing those things. So I think some things you just want to consider is about educating the client and coming at them with an open mind. Like you said, you're going to get those objections, and it's not about trying to roll over the top of them. I think it's really trying to understand if they're talking about, we've worked with agencies before that they've never done a good job, and you go, okay, well, can you explain what can you explain a bit more context, why weren't they doing a good job? And it might be like, they would send us CVs that weren't relevant to the job. And it's okay, well, were these agencies a specialist in this space, or were they more a generalist, and they may not know? So it's when you start actually asking more questions, that's when you start drawing out the real why the objection is there. When they say, oh no, we don't work with agencies. That's like, okay, have you ever worked with agencies? Oh yeah, we did, and then it cost too much money. It's like, okay, well what is too much money? And they might be like, oh, we spent $1 million last year. And it's like, okay, was that over, just permanent recruitment, or are you talking about contracting? Oh, we had a lot of contractors in the business, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, okay, I understand. Well, we do work in that space, but, we can set up, and then you can start, looking at some solutions to those problems. Like, you don't want to start pitching straight away without understanding that. It comes back to qualifying, but also it's just asking more questions at the end of the day. I feel like, a lot of people, they'll ask the question, they'll get an answer and see an opportunity to pitch straight away, where you really need to open those problems up more and more to make sure that even for the person with the objection, that they understand why they're objecting as well. I feel like people will just say things to get you off the phone, but not once you start asking the question, they might have the same realization, like, oh, actually, yeah, like, that agency that we use, they didn't really understand what we're about. And you can be like, okay, well, I actually specialize in this space. I do know, for me, I work in technical recruitment, so I understand the types of projects you guys do. I actually work with, XYZ company, which are your direct competitor, and we've had really successful placements on these projects. And, I've had it plenty of times, like, oh, well, that's really relevant, like, I don't have an opening in my team right now, but would love to see, some more information about that. And, then you just want to start those conversations. And once you hear them out and really try and dig in, like, I mean, sure, there's going to be clients that, get a lot of these calls and just really don't want to buy of you, which are fine, but, they're the type of clients you probably don't want to work with anyway. So I think that's probably the big point, is valuing your service and understanding that it's not for everyone as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also, something which I say to all my clients and my recruiters that I work with, I'll say, if somebody doesn't have the 20 minutes to invest in you, this isn't a partnership. You're better off actually finding another client that has the time to invest, who actually wants to build that mutual partnership, who actually wants to help you answer your questions so that you can do your job well and solve their problems. Because if you've got half information, how can you solve their problems? And something which I always find as well, I do a technique called looping. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of looping before, but it's when you hit a point of resistance in a sales conversation and you almost like can't get through to the next layer, just reverse back and ask an open question relating to that, and then clarify what they've said, because then they feel heard and understood by you. Because if you don't do that and you go straight in with the pitch, well, obviously the answer's no, because from their perception, it's like, well, you didn't listen to what I had to say. You didn't understand my real problem. How can you solve my real problem? And I think, it comes down to questioning. Everything's questioning, isn't it? And it's all about just listening, and then you're able to solve their problems. But I know something else we were talking about offline as well was like that customer journey. So customer journey is what we would probably call it in more like lead generation terms. But I mean, client journey from the first time you contact somebody through to conversion, how long does that typically take you on an average client, let's say?
It really depends, I guess. Some clients are really, open and happy to, desperate to work with you because they have an issue right now, but others, there may not be something that they have a need for, so they may not prioritize you. So it can differ, like I know there's accounts that it can take months and months and months to come online depending on their processes. Others, like I said, can be quite quick, so it's really hard to say, but I guess it just really depends on how much work you want to put into certain accounts and how much they actually align with who your target clients are and what that means for the space that you're working in. I guess you want to make sure that the clients that you're working with fit within your niche if you have one, but also you know the types of clients that candidates want to work with in the market and how important they would be to be in your portfolio, I guess, of clients that you can have opportunities with. But I guess it's really hard to say a definite answer, because there's clients that you call, like I said, who have needs straight away, and you can get on the next meeting, get terms of business across to them, roles on within the next meeting. But then there's others that might be like, look, our panel is closed. We're working with ones that are already meaningful to us, and we want to make sure that they're doing the right job, but happy to have a meeting to see what you guys are about. And then it's more of a chip away type thing. So there's plenty of clients that we are constantly working with that we're not directly recruiting for because they're not working with us currently, but I guess outside of that, we're trying to add value to them to make sure that we're front of mind when an opportunity comes up, and that we're able to prove ourselves when that happens as well. So those long-term clients, are always more satisfying to get sometimes, because, the ones that will take you no matter what, they're doing that to a lot of other agencies as well. And it can be bad work that you may take on, with a newer desk like I'm sort of in at the moment. But, for a longer term desk, you want to sort of get rid of those clients at the end of the day.
Yeah. So is your desk more of a cold desk at the moment, or did you walk in and there was a database, there was clients, there was candidates?
There was definitely roles initially to work on. The desk, the person who was working it previously was over from the US, and that there was a visa thing that didn't work out, so I had to go back. But it's definitely not something that Brunel is known to do. So the branding in the market is not quite there at the moment. But we're building it, so it's probably a bit of both. Like I said, there's clients there with roles on already, but they were sort of I started in January, so they were left over from the previous year, and then they started to get filled, and I did end up with probably a few weeks with no roles, and it was really heavy business development, getting in front of new clients. So it has that aspect of building up a bigger client base, and there's definitely no database, I would say, of candidates for some of the roles that we're recruiting, because they're newer roles to the business, roles that no one in the business has actually recruited before. So it's I don't know how to describe that as cold or hot, but it's maybe it wasn't a cold desk.
Yeah. I think that, do you know what? There's pros and cons to both. Like sometimes having a brand new, fresh, clean slate is a luxury, because you can go in and these clients don't have any perceptions of any previous experiences. So you can just go in as yourself, as Chris, who's the one selling the services and selling your differentiators. And I find people are more receptive to that. I know on the con side, a lot of recruiters will say to me, "Oh, it's so hard. Like it's too hard to start from zero." But I mean, there's definitely some pros to it as well, right? Because you can make that your own and be the person who is on the front foot ultimately. You mentioned as well. Sorry, you go.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna confirm. Yeah, it is, and I can see why people would really love it and love the challenge of it. And I think that was sort of what drew me to Brunel in the beginning, because at my last role, we always had like a job board that was full. So it was, business development wasn't really a big push, but here it definitely is, which I really love. And it's, like you said, you can go in with, the brand that you want, rather than, old accounts that this is how they work. And like I said, it can be bad work depending on how you want to work in recruitment. I came from a really contingent place where every role was contingent, every role was competitive, and I wanted to change that, and there was no sort of push within that business to do that. And coming here, I can really drive that, and I've got the autonomy to pitch for exclusive and retained work, and they're the type of accounts that we sort of want to push into.
Oh wow, I love that. You know what? This is a bit of a hot topic in the recruitment industry at the moment. People are getting tired of working under the contingent model because it's so unpredictable, and there's a lot of wasted hours and time. And it's just, it's a bit overwhelming when you've got 20 roles on your dash, but all are contingent. It's like, which one do you go for first?
Right.
So what advice would you have for recruiters who are maybe looking to transition down that more exclusive / retained route, but they don't really know where to start? What would you recommend?
It's really about getting your value proposition around those services. You have to really consider them as a service that you're offering, and how they differ from how they're already working. I think a lot of people that I've spoken to, when you're digging in, and it comes back to questioning, it's like why are you working with multiple agencies on this? Like, what is the advantage of doing that? Like understanding their why. And they're like, oh, well, if I go to 4 agencies, I have a better chance of filling this. And I go, okay, I understand what you're saying, but what happens from my side, and this is that education piece, is if I'm working this role, like I also have 20 other roles that I'm working at the same time, and if you've given this to 3 other agencies, I have a 25% chance of filling this role now. So when I'm looking at where I'm putting my time during the week, it's not a priority for me. And I understand that might not mean much to you right now, but how I work and where I add value is doing a proper process with my candidates. I make sure that, you know, that the process that I'm following is proper and I'm getting you the right candidates. So, you know, when I'm presenting you a CV, it's one that's really relevant to your business. So if you can give me a role, maybe not this one, but maybe the next one, and you can even give me a week to have it by myself, I'll be able to actually reach out to the right candidates and follow a full process instead of racing to flick CVs over to you. So again, it's about, you know, sometimes we're not fortunate enough to say no to work, but when you see the value in your time and how you work and building that into those services that you can offer the client, and really making sure that you're educating them on how they're actually going to solve their problem. You know, you can say, look, I work with a lot of companies that have a contingent model where they're going to multiple agencies, and what can happen is, you know, that they're getting candidates to them and they're interviewing, but the candidates are falling over. They're either asking for too much money, or they're getting counter offered, or the process isn't being followed and they're not the right candidate, and you're wasting a lot of time during interviews. So, you know, what I find works better is that we work exclusively on this role. You know, you give me 2 weeks, I can go through the process properly. I can work really closely with you or the hiring manager on the types of candidates that they want to see outside of just the dot points from your PD that you've sent me, to really understand who is going to be the right fit. And then once I've gone through my process and really vetted them properly by meeting them face-to-face via Teams or in person if possible, that, you know, this person's actually going to fit the business and we're going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money at the end of the day. So again, it's understanding where the value is in that service and being able to pitch it in to the problems that they're already having. So I think it's, like I said, going really back to the foundation of what makes those services different, that actually add value to the businesses and solve their problem better than what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And something which I always say as well is there's only really 4 reasons why a company would hire an external agency or partner with an external agency. The first one's speed. The second one's money or time saving. The third one's lack of know-how. So maybe it's a niche role. Or the fourth one is lack of resources. So they just can't find the passive talent that they're looking for as well. And what our job is to figure out, is it one of those or is it multiple of those? Because that's ultimately where our value lies. And if we can then have a pitch, or we can put forward a proposal as to how we are the best person to help them move out of that pain that they're in at the moment and into a solution, it then starts to become a bit of a no-brainer to actually work with you. And the fee starts to become very small by that point. The 5-figure perm fee seems insignificant, right? Because they've actually got the manpower in that role. Somebody's doing the position. It's saving somebody a whole bunch of time or money, whoever's managing that team. So it all comes back down to that, doesn't it? And being able to say, well, and having the confidence sometimes as well to say, well, this is me and this is what I'm capable of. I think when it comes to selling the differentiators or exclusivity or retained, confidence is something which is a struggle. People know on a logical level the benefits of working exclusive or retained, but recruiters will struggle to sell themselves, or they'll say it without confidence. And you know what it's like, if you, even in sales, you say something without conviction, nobody believes you. You have to believe it yourself first, right? So with that, is that something you've ever struggled with? Or like, how have you built your confidence to put yourself in that position where you can sell and pitch retainers?
Yeah, I guess it probably comes back from my sales background. You know, it's like you said, you know, people are pretty savvy. You know, when you start fumbling your way through, or you don't believe what you're saying, or you don't have the confidence that the service or the product that you're selling actually fits their model, like that they can figure that out pretty quickly, and you get found out, and you can really lose someone's trust in that moment. So, you know, I guess for me it was really about seeing, you know, working all contingently and just being a really, you know, we used to call it like a busy fool. Like you'd be busy for the sake of being busy. You know, we wouldn't qualify the roles enough. So sometimes send CVs and like, oh yeah, no, we filled that role. And you're like, you've just done a lot of work to get it to that point. So, you know, I really wanted to, you know, when I started Brunel, come in with more intention, have more meaningful conversations with my candidates and my clients. So that means, you know, I'm putting a lot of time in, you know, to qualifying the candidates enough that they're the right fit. So I feel like the value that I'm adding to the clients is better. So that's why I'm more confident. Like I think if you don't believe in the service that you're offering, it can be hard to then try and pitch those things. And if you do pitch them and you get shot down, you'll just go, oh, okay, well, I'll just do it contingently. So you sort of shell up. You got to be confident and say, okay, well, I don't actually work that way. So I understand that. Maybe come back to me in a couple of weeks if you haven't filled the role, and then we can talk about how we can work together to try and fill it for you. Yeah. Again, you may not be in the luxury to be able to do that. You may have to work those contingent roles to build up the reputation. I pitched a retained role the other day at quite senior level, and it's good to do it. We put a proposal. I went through the whole process, and I thought I was pretty sure that we were going to get it, and we didn't end up doing it, but we are working the role exclusively. So if you start at that, you can always come back to hey, look, I understand you don't want to do it this way. Just know that, I'll still be working other roles at the same time and not just focusing on yours. But if you do give me, the 4 weeks without going to other agencies, I will be still following this process to find your candidates, and almost, giving them part of that retained package to show that we can do it and this is how it would work, to look at next ones to build the relationship with the business. Yeah. So you do have to give and take as well. If they haven't worked that way before, you can come up with something else. Like there's no rules. We can sort of just really try and work together, and that's how I pitched in and said, look, I really still like to work really closely with you. Catch up every week. Make sure that the candidates that I'm approaching really suit the business. It can make it a lot better process for the recruiter as well if they're happy to open their books up to candidates they know or have spoken to previously. You skip a lot of that, which saves you time, which can be worth it at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, amazing. I always find that as well. It's almost stepping stones, isn't it? You need to prove yourself before you go straight into retained, but exclusive, a lot of companies are quite open to it. If you just ask the question, a lot will do it, especially if you work in a candidate short market, which I understand you are in a candidate short market. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I work a lot of technical, like engineering roles, which are hard, but then I also work in renewable energy. So it's not a mature industry in Australia as yet. So which is not, it's a good and bad thing, like the companies are more open to taking people from other sectors, whether it's oil and gas or infrastructure, etc. But like it can be hard when you're speaking with clients and they want specific, renewable energy experience, and the market's really short in that space. So you're right. You having the advantage of being able to, understand those roles a bit better will give you an advantage in pitching. You can show your previous history of placements, with relevant companies in relevant roles, to say, hey, we've delivered this before and this is how we've done it.
Interested. So would you share with your clients previous placements, including the client name?
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
You would, yeah. Okay.
If they're with proposals, I definitely tailor them specifically to that client. I understand who their competitors are, who are the relevant ones that deliver similar projects or, develop similar renewable assets, to make sure that, the people we've placed in those roles, would be candidates that they would be interested in having a look at. So, I find I'm fine with doing that with other clients. That doesn't bother me. Like, I feel like it gives you credibility in the market. You can obviously tailor that. We work with some good clients that people know, so that always helps. And that's, I guess, why, if you have it going back to, the types of clients that you may spend more time trying to get on board, that, if you have them on your portfolio that you work with them, it can get you into other, clients as well. So, I think that it all fits in together, with, how you're branding in the market and how you're seen when you're coming across, which can give you the confidence to be able to, get better work at the end of the day.
Yeah. Look, there's something about giving clients a bit of FOMO, a bit of fear of missing out that they're not working with you, because if you are in that position, and I think this works super, super well for PSAs, if you're in that position, you just can't quite get your big client over the line, but they know that you work with all of their competitors who are on the same level as them as such in terms of size. sometimes I find that really helps get them over the line as well. But look, you've obviously done very well. I know when we were speaking before, you said in your first year you billed $500,000, $500,000, which is exceptional for first year in recruitment. So what else do you do? Like, how did you achieve that in your first year? What were your strategies?
Yeah, I guess, again, it comes back to, solution selling at the end of the day. So, when I was working with clients, I was fortunate that, like I said before, the business had a big job board, but I worked in consultancy recruitment. So it's even a shorter market again, where you need very specific skill sets. You need to be able to use very specific software. You need to have worked with specific clients. So it's very skill, and it's even more niche than, construction or renewable energy. So it was, BD, you could pick up the phone to almost any consultancy and they'd be like, yeah, we need a civil engineer who's done urban development, 7 years experience, because they all need the same people at the same time, unfortunately, at this point in time. So, with that, if you found good people, you're able to get it in. But I guess, for me to then, not just fill roles day in, day out, which you could do and just spend your time, looking at engineers all day, I was able to, start building those relationships with the client, understanding where their pain points were, so when you're talking about engineering, you've got projects to deliver, so you have milestones, so you need people to be able to deliver those, so that there was big skill gaps. And, there's a lot of people in that market that work on contract, so they'll set up their own business and, do an hourly rate, and they may do ad hoc stuff at home. So, we had a lot of access to those types of people. And some businesses weren't open to that because they wanted to, get a full-time staff because it was busy. They wanted to invest in their people, which, you always say, look, I understand your goal and what you want to do, and it's not something I'm not trying to help you with. But, you do have these deliverables that you have, you do have, missing people, which is putting pressure on your team. So what happens there is they start leaving because you're pushing and pushing and pushing. And I've seen it with other clients where people start leaving and then you're even more behind. So, I have guys that can do this, really, really good experience in the areas that you need. They're a bit more expensive up front, but you'll be able to deliver your projects then. And in the meantime, while you take them on board, we'll be looking for that full-time person. And, if they're not needed anymore, you can get rid of them, the next day if you need to. So it was about leveraging, and again, understanding the problems within the business and how you can support and giving them the solution. So, from there, I was able to leverage in a couple of really high margin contractors, who would do some ad hoc work. And, once they start delivering, they keep asking them back, basically, when you get good people within a business who can deliver projects for you, like that, and you can price them into your margins and all that sort of stuff within the engineering business, then, it makes sense for them to do that. And it de-risks the business as well with the contractor stuff. So I was fortunate to run a hybrid desk, and that's how I was able to, do what I did. So I was pretty fortunate to, just, be in a really short market and be able to leverage, my previous experience to help other businesses, that's sort of how I look at this role. And that's how I was able to do that, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good. Hypothetically, let's just say, because you are in such a talent short market, what happens? Like, what do you do if you've worked all week, you've market mapped the entire market, you've sent every message, every email, and every call that you possibly can to this talent pool of candidates? What do you then do if you just cannot find the right person? Like, how do you manage that process between the client and yourself?
Yeah, well, I guess, with that, you probably really want to track what you're doing, and just show that you are putting in the work. You might be working with a client that maybe doesn't have a good reputation in the market. So, I guess, again, if you don't have those relationships with the client, or you're not giving that feedback, I think it's important to do, because they probably don't know that, or they might know that and they may go, yeah, look, I understand we don't have the best reputation. And I guess it's then about looking at, okay, well, this is how many people I've reached out to. A lot of these people are already in jobs, happy, not a good time for move, in projects, whatever the feedback is, and say, look, I am really struggling. Obviously, if we're working exclusively, if you need to go to other agencies, by all means, like, I think you maybe need to at this point. So I think being honest in that process and having their business, but their business's interests, at the forefront. So look, I'm just not delivering right now. It's been 2 weeks. I haven't really got anyone for you that's worth sending over. Unless we can have a look at the brief again and open that up in an area, then I can go back to market and have a look for someone. Like if, I guess that's a really good piece to maybe start with, is like, okay, look, I am not getting this, and this, but I do have this, and this. Like, would you consider someone, coming from this space where you could develop them? And they might be like, no, look, we don't have the capacity, or we don't have the resources to do it. We need to find this, and this. Okay, look, I understand that. I'm not finding that in the market at the moment. I've reached out to this many people. This is the feedback. Maybe the salary is short, maybe something else. So, it's just giving the advice at the time. Being open with the client, saying, unfortunately, I'm not delivering at the moment. Like let's have a look at some options that I can help with. If not, then you may have to go to someone else at this time. And, we can have a look at the next one when it comes up. I think they appreciate that, the honesty and the transparency of, you have put in the work, unfortunately, for these reasons. And they might go to the next agency and find the same problems. And then they might have to come back to it. So I think it's just, if you're following the right process and doing the right things, then, you can have those open, honest conversations confidently and come up with a solution at the end of the day. And that's all you're trying to do with the client, is make sure that they're filling the roles that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, most clients are receptive of that as well, right? As long as you're honest and you do the advisory part of your role well, clients pay us to not only place roles and fill positions, but they actually pay us for that advice as well, that guidance and all of those value adds. And I know we touched on value-based selling earlier, but it's so important. It's being able to be that real partner, as opposed to, I can't find a candidate, it's all on you now, because that's not what they want. They need guidance too. They're not recruiters 9 times out of 10, unless it's a TA, an internal team. But most hiring managers, they don't know what they don't know. So if we just say what we need, quite often we'll end up getting what we need. So yeah, so important.
Yeah.
Let's talk LinkedIn as well, because I know you've been pretty active on LinkedIn lately. I've seen all of your content that you've been posting as well. And I know from previous experiences, you see the importance in social media. So what's your experience there with LinkedIn? Do you find that you get many clients or candidates from LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think, my intention this year was to be quite active, like post, 3 times a week. I never always hit that. I think for me, I set the intention and I try to fit that in, and I make sure I'm, relevant to my niche, building that personal brand, along with, being that, SME within the space. So I guess for me, it's not something that sometimes I'll reach out directly and say, hey, I saw this post, want to work with you. But, if you are reaching out to a new client or someone and, you connect with him on LinkedIn, they'll probably check you out and go, oh, actually, this guy's, he's talking about the right things. The job ads he's posting are all really relevant to, what we need at times, etc. So, and, I get some really good candidates who will just reach out and say, hey, I noticed you're posting a lot of this type of role. I'd really, I might be looking for an opportunity in the future. Can we have a chat? What's going on? They see you as that person who sort of has information. And, that's always find that's a good way to start a conversation, saying, oh, hey, I saw this or I saw that, or these guys are doing this. Have you seen this? So it's good reasons to pick up the phone, and then keeping relevant with the content that you're posting. It's worked both ways. And, I'll get calls from clients. I'm like, oh, I saw you're at this event or doing this. They may not comment on or like or anything, but that they're on there as well. So I feel like it can definitely help with, they're definitely warmer conversations you're having with, clients and candidates generally, because there's some credibility and branding that's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like mass scale brand awareness, isn't it? I always say, if you want a really easy way to think about LinkedIn, think about what you say on one-on-one conversations and then just post it on LinkedIn. The market insights that you would share with your audience on the phone, just create posts out of it. It's a really simple way to get in front of the right people. And if you've then got a lot of your target audience in your first connections, you can guarantee that it's going out to them and it's reaching their homepage as well, which is ultra powerful. And I think warming the business development call up, especially in 2024, people don't want to receive those cold calls, and warming those calls up, having that level of credibility as well as familiarity there immediately, I feel like people just respond, Bella. the clients and the candidates, even if they don't want the help right now, they're like, oh, Chris, I don't need it right now. However, I clearly know that you can help me. So maybe I'll drop in what I would need if I was to move roles. And I find that happens a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're becoming meaningful in your space, then, it's why wouldn't they at least have a chat with you? You know what I mean? And then that's when you can, again, it's really, like you said, it's about questions and listening and, understanding if they're the right fit for you, right fit for them, making a connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Now, let's talk a more personal level as well, because I know you're into your competitive sports, which I absolutely love. And I think sometimes the traits that make a successful recruiter are very, I guess we have similar traits in our professional and our personal lives as well. So I would love to hear more about what traits in your personal life that you embody that you think make you a successful recruiter.
I think the discipline. I played rugby league for a long time growing up, and I was never the best player in my senior years, but I always showed up. I was very coachable. When I didn't want to be there, I was still there. I showed up. So I think recruitment is that. It's showing up. There's really bad days. Sometimes things happen and it doesn't go your way, or things are up in the air and things fall over. So it's you just got to keep going, So I think that's been a big one for me. I think everyone who is, been in recruitment more than 6 months understands resilience is, a key one, and discipline, comes along with that. It's, people talk about motivation, but, motivation is good for short periods, but discipline is, continuing to do that, continuing to show up, making sure that when you are, following a process that you're following it all the way through. You can take shortcuts through these processes that you have, whether it's clients or candidates, and that's when you start seeing things fall out. I've experienced before. So those are probably the main ones. And then competitiveness, I think recruitment is competitive. Whenever you speak to a new client, they've probably already got relationships there, and they might be doing a good job, they might not be, but if you're being competitive, if you're seeing opportunities to, do better and improve, that sport, you're training to improve. So it's always about getting better, doing better, and you're failing at times as well, and then taking those as learning opportunities to get better. And okay, well, we've got to get back up at the next one. I've had times with clients, and you'll send a candidate over and they'll interview, and they'll just interview really poorly, and it can tarnish a relationship, or the candidate will do the wrong thing, and it's about, okay, well, I need to do better next time. It's like I need to take accountability, say, look, really apologize on that one. That's on me. That was a big part of being in a team. Like if you made a mistake, you said, look, that's on me, accountable. I'll make up for it. Like I'm going to get better. I'm here. I'm still going to do the job, to make sure that there's confidence within the team, or confidence in your client that, hey, look, that one, yep, on me. I didn't qualify the candidate properly. I didn't know they were going to do that. Obviously I wouldn't have sent them to whatever you need to say, to be honest, but you're accountable. The next one, I'll do better. Let me show you that I can do better on the next one. So I think those are big ones for me. That being competitive is a good one too. You want to be the best agency. When a job comes out, when a need's there, you want to be the one they pick the phone up to. So how can I do that? How can I be that person? When the next one comes up, we want it. You want that, and you want to be competitive. You want to get there first. So those are all things that I feel like have come across really well, and helped with building these businesses in how I have.
Yeah, so important. I agree with you on all of those. Every single one, I think, is critical, because at different stages of our career as recruiters, sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, sometimes we're stressed, sometimes we're not. So what's the saying? Champagne and razor blades, I think, is quite a popular saying in the recruitment industry, and it's definitely very, very true. To add a bit of a cherry on top for you as well, though, like I'm always inspired by people who have kids and they work in a recruitment role, because I don't have kids, and for me, I find it's a lot. Like, it's intense hours, you have to work overtime, you have to be available. So what would your advice be for people out there who do have kids and maybe they're struggling with that bit of work-life balance? What do you do to really manage that?
I guess I've been fortunate to work in businesses who, have those same values. So I guess, I can't talk for everyone and where they're working and what that looks like, but, I do prioritize my family mostly. I don't, at 5 o'clock, I'm usually out the door because I need to get home. Otherwise, if I get home late, I miss sending my kids to bed, and I really hate that. So, I guess, when it's about your values at the end of the day. My values are, I want to be there for my kids. I want to support my family. I go to work to support my family as well. So I want to do a really good job at doing that. So, I think you can only control so much, and I've put my value on, the time I spend at work is this. Once the kids go to bed, sometimes I'll jump on my laptop and download some CVs from Talent Search to have a call list ready for the next day, or, look at, I'll get emails or calls and I'll take them, after work if I can. If the kids are in bed, I'll call them back, or I'll say, hey, I'll call you early in the morning. It's about managing that and just saying, look, I'm just putting the kids to bed. Can you give me? And people understand. But I know I would be able to, bill a lot higher or be a much better recruiter if, I didn't have kids, but, I do, and that's the value I have around it. And I think you have to accept that as well. Like you're never going to be able to be well, I'm not saying never, but it's going to be hard for you to do really well at both. Be the best biller in the business, and, be a really good dad or a really good mom at home. So I think it's just looking at where your value is and what's important to your family as well. It's a partnership, so I want to, my wife works, she's busy too, she's trying to start her own business as well. So, I want to make sure that I'm there to support all of that, but also, support with, working a job that can be quite lucrative if you do it well.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think, look, in the time we have our full-time hours, Monday to Friday, like if we're smart with our time and we're not doing everything one-on-one, we can be the best billers. Eventually, like, yes, it takes time to gain momentum and compound, but ultimately there's no reason why we can't. It's definitely about working smarter. And I am a big believer that time in the game, in the recruitment industry, means the easier it is to make placements. Like that over time, the bigger your network, the more referrals you get, the bigger your community group, the bigger your personal brand on LinkedIn. You kind of stop counting the hours as such, and it starts becoming more, I guess, like quality over quantity. I think it's one of those things you can definitely make both work. But yeah, look, it's intense, isn't it? But most people understand we're all human. We all have other priorities outside of work as well, right? So it is what it is. And yeah, everyone understands that. But yeah, good to know. Let's round up, Chris. I would love to know your top 3 tips, if you've got 3 to hand. I know I'm catching you a bit off guard. What would your top 3 tips be to any recruiter who's, doing well in their position, but they maybe want to just like level up to that next stage? What 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
I guess, one is, understanding your value proposition. Like what do you offer your clients that no one else can? Like how are you positioning yourself to be competitive, to be that person that they're going to when they have a new role, or when they have an issue, or when they want some advice? Like I said, we talk about, we try to add value outside of just recruitment. So, we have clients that we, don't have terms of business with, we're not on their panel, but we say, look, we can do some salary benchmarking for you, or, if you, want some pricing for a tender, we're happy to, get involved with that. If you're wondering about, certain projects that are going on, always happy to catch up for a coffee and discuss what's going on in the market, because generally we have, pretty good eyes and ears on that sort of stuff. So it's understanding those little pieces where, you can say, this is what we do. We're not just here to fill your roles, we're here to add value to your business, by doing this, this, and this. So getting really clear on that, I think, is important. And then have a looking at your processes. Like, I think going back to your foundations is like, how are you interacting with your candidates? Like I said at the start of this year, I said I wanted to have more meaningful conversations with my candidates, and that's what I've been able to do. And I think by doing that, I find that I just get much better buy-in from them. They trust me. They want to work with me, and they know I have. I've listened to them. Like, I've asked those questions that maybe other recruitment agencies haven't, or that they haven't asked themselves. They don't really know, and they go, oh, okay, no one's ever asked me. I probably have to think about that. So, understanding, what good looks like when in that journey, going back to, my old job and customer journey, it's okay, what does good look like? From when I, reach out to a candidate the first time, what does that conversation look like? Okay. And if that conversation goes well, what's the next interaction? If we have to, I always then, we'll formalize our interaction and, give a right to represent form to make it really, this is us working together. So because, candidates can let you down. So I feel like you're also protecting yourself through those processes. So, getting really clear on how that process and that journey looks for the candidate, can be really beneficial to, whether those candidates will come back or how they'll interact with the client, whether they'll do the right thing in that process themselves, because you can't control that process. But I feel like if you're controlling this, you're giving yourself the best opportunity for that candidate to be, wanting to do it for you as well, not letting you down at the end of the day. Whereas if you're just having really light conversations and not qualifying enough, the candidates can let you down. Like I've experienced that before, and it can be detrimental to your brand and clients and all that sort of stuff. So that's probably two. And then the third one is ask more questions. When you think you've asked a lot of questions, ask more. Like that's, you just need to, if you don't know what questions to ask, like think about them, write them down. What are some really good questions to ask your candidates? Get to really understand them. Like why are you looking for another role? Like and it's like, oh, I need more money. Okay, well, what does maybe don't get like what does more money mean to you? Like oh yeah, well you're also okay, great. And then when they're talking through, it's like, okay, well, I know this person's only looking for more money. Is this the right candidate to go in here? Because if they get tapped on the shoulder, they might leave in 6 months and I'll have to replace them. It's okay, well, is there anything else that you don't like about your current role? Like it's really getting deep in all these conversations. Again, it's opening those doors with the client. You can open the brief, if you're asking the right questions. So getting clear, and it's going back and really reflecting, okay, it's like, okay, what is this process? What do I want to get out of it? How am I going to make each step really good? And if you can do that and follow that, you're not going to do it all the time, but I guarantee if if a candidate falls out or, a client goes cold on you, like you can really look back and go, okay, well, why is that? Where in my process did I go wrong there? Like, what didn't I do? And you'll generally find you found a shortcut somewhere and you've missed something. You're like, oh, I didn't ask them, why this role's come about, and then, you found out it was, they were just testing the market and it wasn't a real role, and you put all this time in and it's like, okay, next time it's taking accountability, saying that was me, it's not them. You can always say, oh yeah, the client's crap or whatever, but you can, okay, no, that I didn't qualify that candidate hard enough. I didn't qualify the role hard enough. I didn't do something in my process, or you're missing it from your process. So that's probably a big part, in doing recruitment well, is going back to that and then understanding that you can always add or take, and it's an evolving process. But I used to do that a lot with my staff, and you can see the results. You can, when people are taking shortcuts, they're trying to get to the end of the process too early. You can see the results there.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Like, I couldn't agree more. Everything you've said's been super insightful. I think your method is very much like that relationship value-based selling, or, recruitment style, which a lot of recruiters aspire to, but perhaps they're more in the transactional phase at the moment. So yeah, everything you shared, I feel like adds a ton of value. So thank you so much for your insight. Thank you so much for being on the podcast as well. I really appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers, Chris. Bye.
Bye.